Pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, number 2, open public forum. Anybody that is not on the agenda wishes to speak? Otherwise, we'll move on to number 3, approval of the amended agenda. I need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Shannon makes a motion, how about a second?
Second.
Gary seconds it, any discussion on it? Otherwise, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against, motion carries. Number 4, consent agenda, recommendation to approve the consent agenda as presented. I need a motion on that.
Make that motion.
Doug makes a motion, how about a second?
I'll second.
Jamie seconds it, any discussion on it? Otherwise, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against, motion carries. Number 5, Fire Department Relief Association request to increase the contribution for 2019. Chief, Edward.
How are you doing?
Not too bad, how about you?
Busy. Saturday call, so.
Good.
You wanna, did you read that, Dave, or?
Should I'll read the recommendation quick. Recommendation to approve the recommendation of the Fire Department Relief Association to increase the relief contributions to $600, or up $600, for a total contribution of $17,900. I need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Jamie makes a motion, how about a second?
I'll second.
Gary seconds it. Any discussion? You want to say anything about it, or this just happens every other year, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I thought it got done earlier in the year, but I guess that's,
Yeah,
if we can
okay.
get it done, so.
Is there any discussion on it? Otherwise, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against?
I'll abstain.
And Doug abstains.
Motion
Motion carried. Do roll call. Jamie?
Aye.
Doug?
I'll abstain.
Shannon?
Aye.
Gary? And I for me too. Is that it for you, or do you got something else?
Well, yeah, I got some crappy news today from FEMA.
Oh,
That we got
again?
rejected for our AFG grant, so. Bummer.
Yeah.
Made it to, halfway through October, so. But there's a lot of them that didn't get grants this year, so. Happy like everybody else.
One of these years.
Yeah.
What's an AFG grant?
Systems firefighter grant, that's the one that we applied for the new pumper. Yeah. They were late in giving them out this year because they switched over their whole process of doing things, and then now there's some that, I think Melrose might have got a grant, but not a whole lot around this area, so. Not good news.
Oh, well. Try again next year.
Yeah. And then the other thing, I have to head out real quickly here, but number 7, when you guys get to it, I am okay with the height of it.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
All right.
All right.
Anything for me?
Anybody got any questions for?
Thank you. We're at probably gonna hit 400 this year again, so.
Yeah.
Sounds like that every day.
Yeah.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thanks, Dan.
Good night.
And we'll move on to number 6. Resolution 2019-26, a resolution approving a variance for the Cold Spring Brewing Company. Scott and just Carl? Oh,
Just Carl.
Then we'll just go Carl.
Gee, thanks.
I'm here if you need me, Carl. I just see a camera.
Carl, can you move that microphone over so everybody hear it? Yeah, there you go.
Hear me now?
Yeah, looks like it. Looks like it.
So we're applying for a variance to encroach on the right-of-way. For
Setback.
Setback, sorry. on Fifth Avenue. Would be a fermentation building and a cooler expansion. The fermentation building would be based on this drawing.
It's not working for one.
So this is a site plan of these brewery. We are looking for a building here. That would be 27 by 4 inches and 60. Right here, we would come out from this existing building into this spot, which would basically touch the property line there. And a building here, that would be 13, a little over 13 feet from.
I will read the recommendation for that. Recommendation to approve resolution 2019-26. Resolution approving of a variance to allow for the construction of 2 additions that encroach on the right-of-way setback of Fifth Avenue North. Can I get a motion on that?
I'll make a motion.
Gary makes a motion, how about a second?
I'll second.
Jamie seconds it. Is there any discussion on it? Planning Commission reviewed this and we were okay with it. There was unanimous.
Which one do you want the drawing?
That one.
Just to visualize it.
Yeah, the building, that there one right there.
So it would be this building and this building. Are the two.
Those 2 tall white ones in the center are the
CO2 towers.
CO2 towers?
Yep.
So when the truck pulls up to fill it, that truck actually sits off the roadway, right?
Correct.
And you're not going past that,
Right.
right? Okay.
We'll actually go right to where the treatment plant is, same
Okay.
property.
That one building to the right just makes everything even across the whole back there. All the buildings would
Yeah,
be
this
pretty
would be-
much pretty close to even all the way across.
Yeah. And this one doesn't even come out as far as those
Yeah.
white tanks.
That's the other one you're adding, right?
Yeah, that's the second.
Yeah. Is there any discussion on it? Otherwise, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against, motion carries. We'll go on to number 7 then. Request approval to construct a building with a height of 68 feet 11 inches in the I-2 General Industrial District, Cold Spring Brewing Company. Carl, again.
Same building, just about 10 feet taller than the existing structure that it's attached to. If you look at the tanks we put in this last year, up the hill, it's slightly upgraded. So it's still a little bit taller, but it's pretty close to level elevation wise. And it would just, the only thing in this building would be 8 tanks.
Okay, I'll read the recommendation again. Recommendation to approve the request from Cold Spring Brewing Company to construct the building in the I-2 General Industrial District to a height of 68 feet 11 inches. I need a motion on that.
I'll make a motion.
Shannon makes a motion, how about a second?
I'll second.
Jamie seconds it. Any discussion on it? Again, planning commission voted for it unanimously. Any other discussion on it? Otherwise, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carries. That's it for you guys tonight, huh?
That was it.
It is.
for tonight.
For that night. We'll be back.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, thanks you guys.
Good luck.
Yeah.
No pressure, Carl. Sure.
Okay, 8 was taken out. Number 9, presentation on the safe stations from Advocates for Health. Rich Benice?
Actually, Rich is out of town. My name is Joel Vogel. I'm with
Okay.
Advocates for Health. I think Eric was going to do the introduction.
Yeah. So we have all the committee here today. I was just gonna thank everybody so that way you guys see the committee as well. Joel Vogel, Gary Tyson, because you guys put him on there last month's meeting, I believe it was last month. Wendy Gilk with Gilk Plumbing. Audrey Nierenhausen with Keystone Finances. Miranda Tice, 3rd Street Brew House. That's representing the Cold Spring businesses, she is. Brent Neisinger, representing all the schools. King Clausen is just got put on by Richmond Council. And then Chief Jason Bloom is also on the committee.
Okay, thanks. I want to keep this about 15, 20 minutes to give you an idea. Mother's Day, May 9th, 15 years ago, I had a heart attack. Ended up being saved, and lived in St. Joe. We're rivals, okay, I get over that already. St. Joe and Cold Spring, but anyhow. So I started I actually quit my job because of amount of stress and things, and I went to work at a golf course. And when I was out there, I was running all these fundraisers of people raising money to do things. So I said, why don't I do something for it? And I belong to a group called Mended Hearts in St. Cloud. There's a group of 10 of us. We volunteer to speak to the people that before they have heart surgery, and then 3 days after they have heart surgery. So we went out and I started the tournament. And over the last 8 years, or 7 years, we put out 26 AEDs in the community as they were requested in a grant. And we worked with Centricare called Take Heart, and we got that done. Then about a year ago, Rich Fenice, who has been at my golf tournament all along, came and said, Joe, why are we putting these inside and things? We actually put one here in Cold Spring at the senior center. They had put a request in, so we funded that. And I said, well, we can't put them outside. It's too cold. Can't and things, and people steal them and all kinds of things. And he said, well, let me check that out. Well, you don't tell Rich you can't do something. And we looked into it. So last fall, Rich went to Centricare and said, hey, this guy's been running this tournament by himself, and he's raised enough money to put out 26 AEDs. You need to back him a little bit. So they gave us a grant for $25,000 and said, why don't we try a pilot program? We put 3 of them in St. Cloud, or 2 of them in St. Cloud on County Road 8, and 1 of them up in Sartell. And they went through the whole winter without a problem. Well, what we found out was in Canada, they got 1,000 AEDs in something called a save station. This is the save station. Bring that up. Oops, Court. There's 2 parts. You got an AED and you got a save station. When I talk about the unfounded objection that people are worried about right away, they say, well, someone's going to steal them if you put them outside. Well, the reality is they're all over Canada, they're all over Europe and things, and they're not stolen. So what happens is this, and this is how they work. If in fact someone has a heart attack right now, someone went down in this room right now, someone would run over and they would get the AED and bring it in. You'd have to find it in a facility and things. If they were outside and you weren't in this meeting, and they wanted to come in here and the building was all locked up, there'd be a problem. And that's what we found out. So what we did is how the safe station works is you open this. So I have it disconnected so the alarm doesn't go off. So it goes beep, 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 beep for 90 seconds real loud. Has a camera in here, it takes your picture. Currently we got them all set up to take that photo and send it to Sheriff Soika. If we wanted to change that so it would come in here to Chief, we'd be able to do that as well. Okay? But here's the nice thing about it. I think I heard some talk as you guys were walking away and the chief was sitting there, how many calls are you going to have this year? And it was 400.
Over 400.
Quarter 400. St. Joe's got 500 a year.
Joel, we move the mic towards you again. There you
A
go.
little bit more like
Yeah.
that. Okay, all right. So what happens is the first responder time usually should be In St. Joe, we know it's 8.5 minutes. The information that I handed out to you, there's 350,000 sudden cardiac arrests. It's the leading cause of death in the United States, more than all the cancers combined. If you have a sudden cardiac arrest, your chance of making it is only 5%. If in fact we can get a save station out there and someone can start it with an AED on you ahead of time, your chance of survival goes up to 75 to 80% if it's done within the first 8 minutes. So what happens is this. Someone comes, they open it up, they just grab the AED, and they take off and they run with it and they go to the person where it's at. On my demonstration model here, everyone's afraid of an AED. You don't have to be. You just take it, and all you do is you press start.
Adult patient. If the patient is a child, press the child button.
Some AEDs have a child button, some do
Remove
not.
clothing from the patient's chest.
Take clothing off, there's a scissors inside
Apply
here.
pads onto patient's bare skin.
The pads show you a picture of where
Apply
they go.
pads as shown in the pictures. Press pads firmly on skin. Apply pads as shown in the pictures. Press pads firmly on skin. Do not touch the patient. Analyzing heart rhythm.
So it analyzes
Do
the heart
not
rhythm.
touch the patient.
Okay.
Analyzing heart rhythm. Shock advised. Do not touch the patient. Everyone clear. Press the flashing shock button. Shock delivered.
Now I'm going to stop here just a
Begin
second.
CPR.
You hear the metronome coming in? Okay. How many in the room know how to do CPR? Raise your hand. Great. How many in the room have ever used an AED? Okay. How many of you guys have a safe? It's the greatest feeling in the world. Okay. Here's the other misconception about this. You got a couple of drunk 18-year-old kids, they steal the AED, they go down, they put it on their buddy because he's drunk, and you're going to put it on him, and you're going to zap him, right? You can push this button all day long, nothing's going to happen. Only when it analyzes the victim and comes up and says, okay, shock advised, then and only then we'll do it and make this a hot button so you're able to do that, okay? So, what we've done is the other thing is there's no black market for an AED. You take an AED and you go to the pawn shop and you say, what do you give me for it? They say 90 days in jail, knucklehead, it's a felony. You know, thanks for doing it, it's a $2,500 fine. So we started working with Sheriff Soika. And we said, Sheriff, where are all the AEDs in the area? He says, I don't know. We went to Centric here, so where are all the AEDs? He said, I don't know. As a matter of fact, we said, well, you guys do all the training in the area, can you give us that information? They said, no, that's HIPAA information. We said, that ain't HIPAA information. HIPAA information is on patient. We're talking about where you've done your safety things. Well, we'll think about it. Went to the Stearns County Emergency Services. They said, we got 130 names here. Long story short, went back to Centric here, they gave us theirs. We found 481 AEDs in Stearns County that nobody had a list to. We then provided it to Sheriff Soika and said, here they are. So when someone calls in, we worked with a company called Geocom in St. Cloud, where they're mapping for free where all the 481 AEDs are. And by the way, that's up to over 530 now because we're putting 50 more of these out within the last time since we got our statistics. We then hired a gal named Molly Young who went to all 481 locations and said, we're here to look at your AED, see if the batteries are good or the pads are good. We found out that 20% or more, the batteries were bad or the pads are good. No one basically is doing it. We brought them all up to speed, so now all of them in the area are up to snuff and they're all working. Okay? We did have one situation where the person said, I don't want it anymore, and they gave the AED back to us. Okay? We're going to have some of that. So we started doing that. Well, then what happened was, I went to St. Joe, city of St. Joe, and I said to them where I live, I said, would you guys consider, because we know where the 481 are, I know you got 30 of them here in town, would you consider moving the ones in the city outside? They said, well, at that night at the council meeting, they voted to do that, and the next day they called me and said, we decided to do 4. Then the next day they called me and said, we decided to do 5 because Audrey Twitt is going to put 4 of them up and buy 4 of the safe stations in honor of her husband, and in his memory, and they did. And we installed those, and then I went back to the council and said, hey, since you guys voted to do 4 and you really didn't do it, would you do another 4 more? And they decided to do another 5 more. In St. Joe, there's 12 safe stations up right now. What happened in between there is I went and I talked to do presentations at Lions Clubs and things. We actually spoke. Eric happened to be at a meeting there and came in and heard what we're doing. The Sheriff Soika, one of the handouts inside that you have here, talks about how he's behind this particular movement. Actually, Sheriff Heck's behind this movement. The same flyer exists in Benton County as well. We started out with 3. Right now, we're up to 52 save stations spoken for because of the grant that we got from Centricare that enabled us to do that. Now, what you really want to know is that you want to be 3 minutes away from getting that AED and coming back, so they need to be spaced strategically in locations. There's 481 around the area. We know where there's a bunch of, I know all of them are in Cold Spring. And got them on a list and things. We can actually take some of those that are existing and move them outside if we wanted to. We can leave them inside the building and just put signage out there. It says safe station, that's inside there. They know that that's available if they wanted to go in there. So there's a number of different options to go. So having said all that, the Lions Club, we've got some, Jack and Jim's, Dualms, Sartell's doing 3, the Optimist Club got 1 for Old Chicago, Snow got paid for 1 in St. Anna, Wade Park decided to do 7, and now I'm going to hand it over to Eric, and he's going to tell you where we're at with the committee with the safe stations here in Cold Spring.
So I'm going to start by saying, so far, if you look at the 3rd page, the last page, so our committee got together and figured out Richmond got a grant of 10. Richmond's in a share 5, sounds like, with the city of Cold Spring.
I don't have
It didn't,
In your Cold Spring, Richmond? Did you guys get that one?
Didn't get that one, I don't think.
that page didn't.
It's in, I got a few here. I thought this was in our packets. You didn't get that page, though. Rich didn't send that page. No. Maybe you guys can share it. So on the last page is we got together as a committee with the Advocates for Health, and we chose these locations because they were on a busier road. So there's a phase 1 and a phase 2. Just because it's on phase 1 doesn't mean it's necessarily going to go in that order. They can bump around.
If I could just interject, they do have a map in your packet.
Oh.
It shows the map of phase 1 and the map of phase 2 with everything listed that Eric's talking about there. That should probably help you get a visual and see the overlapping for that 3 minutes we talked about.
So right now we have about $14,000 fundraised. The Fire Relief Association, Cold Spring Fire Relief Association donated $3,000. The Cold Spring Richmond Police Foundation donated $3,000. 3rd Street Brew House donated just under $2,800. And then Richmond Lions just donated another $3,000. So we have 4 going up as soon as we can get out both identities, because it is 2 cities. It's just a little complicated on how to get them out. So hopefully I'm hoping that within the next month, we're gonna have 4 of them around town. So just so you know, so 3rd Street's gonna get theirs. The Ricordi schools, believe it or not, they don't have any outside over by their concessions or their football, softball, soccer, lacrosse, tennis. So we're gonna put one out. Brent, I believe, approved it right by the softball fields. So it's easily accessible. Anybody can drive up there any time of the day, grab it. And then A&W is also going to get one. That's where Richmond Lions wanted to put theirs. So that, for instance, so that just tells you that it's going to get bumped out. We're going to use our $3,000 and put it on more than likely like Richmond City Hall, even though we as a police foundation have chosen the splash pad. So once the splash pad gets done, we raise enough money, then that funding will be used for us there. You guys have any questions at all yet?
Let me interject here, because I got the brochure, and I missed part of it. To bring it together, I think we've done a good job. On this page here, it shows the different models that are available. The one for $27.95 is the one we're showing you here. That's a wall mount. That can go up, and you can see a picture of that down below, how that's just attached to a building. In St. Joseph, they put one of these on the fire hall. They put one of these on the Lake Wobegon Trail building. They put one of these on Millstream Park building. They put one of these on just a lift station in a strategically placed. I actually applied for the grant since I've been doing this for 8 years. My wife finally said, you keep going to all these meetings at night and things like that, why don't you get one? So I went around the neighborhood myself. We put one of these on my garage, and we raised the money by using an app where people could donate that way. So we've got that done. Along with the grant that we get with the AED, CentraCare provides training along with it. So every time that we place an AED out in that area, we're able to do that. Now, we kind of ran out of money with CentraCare because we burned through the 25,000. My golf tournament this year raised another 12,000. So when you got 50 people wanting these, that 35 doesn't really add up. So we're in the process of fundraising again to continue on. That's why we got a phase 1, phase 2 going as well. So that actually shows you the different models. And in the one in the middle here, that one, the difference is it's got a top part that's lit. So I wish I would have put that model on my garage. Instead, I just got a light shining over that way. In Sartell, if you drive down right by the Lions Club there, they went with the lit model. And then what we've done is we've done some standalones also around the area. We look kind of at the situation where it is and go from there. The other thing is we've got some great partners. The union, the electrical union, they've got something called Power Partners. They've agreed to do all the hookups for us in the state of Minnesota through the electrical union for free.
Problem is, we won't be using them. Faber Electric already volunteered all services to be free. So we're staying local.
So what's happened is we're out talking as Advocate Health for all this. People are coming on board. This committee was wonderful. We actually went and spoke at the Chamber Connection. This group of people took this project and ran to it. Unlike me going to the city councils and asking them for monies to get behind. I'm not here to ask you for any monies for that. However, you guys can talk about it after we leave if you want to do that. You want to have to take some of your money. But there are 3 things that we could talk to you about that the city could do. One is signage down the road, because there's directional signage that comes into play. We've actually working with the state of Minnesota because there could be some directional signage that's going to go along Highway 23. So we're in the process of talking to the state of Minnesota on what we can put on the signs and what they can't put on the signs.
And they've already went to Stearns County, and Stearns County has approved that all signage can go on all county roads. So we don't have to worry about going through that hoop and that rigmarole of putting signage.
So signage would be huge. The other thing is training. In St. Joe, I'm having an open house at my house this weekend for all the neighbors to come in. We're going to do bystander training, which is different than certifying everybody. Because when you do a certification, someone's got to come out. It's usually a class size of about 25 people. Currently in St. Joe, they hold it once a year and they charge for it. We're getting that changed because we're working with the fire departments to train and come out where they're going to be offering it weekly. So instead of only having 50 people trained in St. Joe, they're eventually going to have 1,050 people trained on how to give the CPR. Now, what I didn't tell you was this. When this opens up and it takes your picture, and it calls 911 for you, and you grab it and go, we can program up to 120 neighbors right in that neighborhood to become a first responder. Well, why is that important? The average response time is 8.5 minutes in St. Joe. I believe it's about the same here.
Actually got you beat by a minute and a half.
Minute and a half. So if you go down, that first 3 minutes is very good. But if there's a neighbor that goes down and we're able to go out there and grab it and you're able to get there before the people, there's a false sense of security that the cavalry is going to come if you go down. Well, they're going to come, but they might be too late. In St. Joe, if they have a fire call, there's 29 people currently on the fire department. 29 people show up. If it's a medical, they might get 3. With 500 calls a year, the thing is your neighbors are the people that want to do this. Now in my neighborhood, we had 10, 12 people already sign up to be first responders along with it. It also makes more sense to work with, if someone is a first responder, instead of going to the fire hall and getting in a truck and come out, just grab by and go over to the house and help that way. So those are things that are currently being done.
So I thought this was an interesting stat. Every minute is 10% less likely. So every minute you're down, you have 10% likelihood of not coming back. So 80% if you're living in St. Joe, 85% likelihood that you will not bring you back to life.
We are currently working with Senator Jeff Howe, who's a representative in this area. Senator Howe's looking at writing some legislation. Because right now, what we found out is that there are some for-profit organizations you're supposed to register your AED in. One's called AED Finder, Pulse Point AED Registry, AED Militia. I'm standing in this room here. I haven't done this yet tonight, but I guarantee you I'm going to touch AED Finder, and what's going to happen is it's going to find me right here in 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004. Okay, it's got bad Wi-Fi here. You do. Okay, so it's taken me a while. Usually within 1 second it tells me where I'm at and it comes up. Now what ends up happening, it shows me that map, and then I can push list locations to the closest AED. Unfortunately, I have to expand that map, and the closest AED to me happens to be Piers, Minnesota.
Which is crazy, because we met with the chamber, and Gary programmed them that day, so it tells you how fast they get into updating. And that's been about a month ago.
So, what he's hoping to do is task the Safety Foundation to take and write a program like a 911, 411, 511, maybe one, so it's statewide, so that wherever you are, you could hit that number and find out where the closest AEDs are. And things. We're also working with the DNR to put these at every boat landing throughout the state of Minnesota as well. So I think this group here has done one hell of a job they took all 10, 20 of that we had the AEDs. Well, I don't care, because we wanted to work with the people that were out there. Now the other side of the coin is we've gone to the manufacturers. There's only 6 of them in AEDs. We've negotiated the cost of AED. Centricare is paying $1,700 for an AED when they were providing them out. We negotiated a price with one of the latest AEDs, same AED for $850. So we've come a long way in the 6 months that we've been working on it, and we wanted to bring you up to speed. Were you going to talk about the GoFundMe page?
There is a crowdfunding page, so if you guys, anybody wants to follow it, to know how much money we've raised, because we don't want any secrets. It's good crowdfunding. It's in your packet that you can go on and download it on your phone. Once we have enough money, once we get these DFibs given out, once there's enough money to put a new one up, we're just going to put it up after we get the initial ones going. So we're not going to have money in there when these things could save a life. So, do you guys have any questions? I know we're both up on time here. Do you guys have any questions?
You guys got anything?
I'm looking forward to seeing them
Mm-hmm.
in the neighborhoods
Yep.
around town.
The question I usually ask people when we get to this point is, live somewhere at home, do you know where the closest AED is to your house?
Probably
Probably City Hall.
Fire.
And is it available to you? So,
Not less than close.
there's been two stories that were done by the local news. KARE 11 came out, did a story on us, and Jerry Hess was saved. And last week, KMSP Channel 5 came out and did a story about Mike Canfield, who was reffing a game up in Kimball 2 weeks ago and had sudden cardiac arrest right after halftime. Mike made it because there was a first responder at the JV football game, and there was an AED available. If I tell people, if I came to you and I said, I got a cure for cancer, you write me a check for $250,000, I can take care of cancer in Cold Spring, you guys would write me a check. I'm telling you, I ain't got a cure for cancer, but I can take the survival rate in this community from 5% to 75 or 80% in sudden cardiac arrest. This is phenomenal. These people have done a heck of a job seeing the potential in taking this and running. And by the way, this is a nonprofit save station. Rich Fenage does not have to do this. He's completely retired and out of the area. He has a reason to do it. I have a reason because of my heart attack. And when I was younger, my dad fell down. We prayed and we shook him. He came to. Well, a couple years later in the boat fishing, what does he do? He goes down again. We shook him, we prayed again. This time he was a stubborn Jordan. He went to the hospital. Then he said, well, geez, Ralph, you've had 7 heart attacks already. He said, Mom, maybe I should quit smoking now. Well, guess what? He did. He lived a while, eventually died of sudden cardiac arrest. I don't want to have anybody else in that position. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
You guys want any more pliers to take to your friends? I got extras. All right.
Thank you. If you want to leave some at City Hall, you can.
Okay.
If someone wants some.
That's a good idea. Yep, I got it.
All right, where are we at? We just right up. Okay. Public Works Director, report, John Stevie.
Good evening.
Along with Brian Mitchell.
Pilot study update. Adam Metcalf from Adage was here yesterday and today demobilizing. He's got it all ready to go on pallets, the way it sounded this afternoon, and hopefully ready to ship out. With that, we have verbal approval from the Department of Health on the pilot. We had a meeting today with Stantec, and Adage is going to finish up their report in 1 week. And when that report is finished, basically it's going to say, it's going to show the data, we'll bring it back to you guys, and then just to approve that the biological treatment works. And then from there, Stantec will just keep moving forward with preliminary design and things like that. Manholes and valve box. So around town, some people have been talking about, manholes being too low. When they drive over, it's like a bump, Well, unfortunately in Minnesota, being too low is good, because otherwise we hit them with our plows. And they create a lot of damage. Every year we hit them. What happens is the frost comes and it shifts the ground around. We try to be proactive and lower them down. We just lowered one down on City View Road a couple weeks ago. But as far as raising them up, there's a couple around town that could be raised up, maybe an inch or so. But the cost of that is $600 per manhole, roughly. You have to cut a pretty big chunk out around it and then raise it up and repave it. Gate valve boxes, there's some of those that can be raised up, some lowered down. We do that in-house, and we actually bought a machine last year. It's called a curve cutter. And so there's some around town. Paul's been out the last week and a half doing some of them as well. But just some informational stuff. I don't want to get too carried away and trying to level them back out perfect, because we're going to spend a lot of tax dollars on that. But the nice part is a lot of them are designed to be in the center of the road, and if drivers are hitting them, they should probably move over a little bit because they're on the center of the road. But some of them are in the drive lanes, unfortunately, and you do hit them, but it kind of is what it is. But there's some around, or some definitely bad ones around town that can be addressed a little bit, but it's just a matter of how much money do you want to spend on them. So, any questions for me?
Anybody got anything?
Thank you.
And number 11, city engineer report. Brian Litchett.
Mr. Mayor and Council. The first one we have on here is looking at a business development infrastructure grant. This is a deed grant that we've been working on basically for a project that would bring water, put in wells and bring water main from the Fraley property that we bought a couple of years ago. Looking at that.
I just want to interject, we had talked to you about this at a couple of meetings about using this for stormwater or wastewater from the
Correct,
brewery
yes,
to.
yeah, sorry.
The amount of time it would take to get that one done versus how quickly we can turn this project made better sense to go after water instead of wastewater, just so you're aware of that.
And this one's actually more fitting too for the grant, with creating jobs and stuff for the industry, so.
So it looks at job creation and how the infrastructure will help support job creation. So we're looking at it with potential expansions at the brewery and needing more water. And basically, new wells, new water main to help supply that. So, thank you. So basically, we need the council's approval to go ahead and submit this. What it would be a 50-50 split for the construction cost. We can get up to 50% of that covered by deed, and then the remaining 50% would be city and whatever other agreements we make. But 50% would be covered by the grant.
The funding that they have for their 2019 fiscal year for the state has about 1.5 left. And it's a first come, first served. So they know that they have we know that they've been talking to some other cities about potentially up to 600,000 those cities would seek. If we get ours in first, we could get the full amount that they're seeking.
So we'd be seeking close to the total project. We're finalizing the estimates right now. We're pretty close. The total project would probably be a little bit over $2 million. So we'd be seeking about $1 million or a little over in reimbursement from the grant.
Okay, should I read the recommendation then?
Please.
Recommendation to approve resolution 2019-26, a resolution authorizing the application for a business development infrastructure re-grant. I need a motion on that.
I'll make a motion.
Gary makes a motion, how about a second?
I'll second that.
Shannon seconds it. Any discussion on it? Otherwise, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carries. There you go.
Thank you. We're looking to hopefully get everything pulled together this week and get it submitted as soon as we possibly can to try and get ahead of others.
All right.
County Road 158, First Street South. At the last meeting, it was approved to go ahead and do plans and specs. So we're getting going on those. One of the things we looked at, we talked about during the meeting, there was kind of a difference between what we had in the feasibility report and what we talked about for road width. Feasibility report talked about a 40-foot road. We talked a little bit about a 42-foot road. Looking for, I guess, direction from the council as to which way we would like to go. At this point in the project, we really need to start making those decisions because they affect the design moving forward. John and I have looked a little more at what the 40-foot road would be. At the feasibility, or in the presentation, we talked about potentially 11-foot driving lanes and 10-foot parking lanes. And really, if we go to the 40-foot, it would be 11-foot driving lanes and 9-foot parking lanes. So we just wanted to bring that back to the council, have a little discussion about what the impacts are there and what your thoughts were.
For reference point to the road, the section between 12th and 14th is 40 feet.
So the west end of the
Oh,
project.
that's west end. Personally, I would say 42 feet.
I have that.
I would say 42 feet.
I agree.
Yeah, I don't know that we wanna go less than 10-foot parking lanes. It is, I mean, it's
Well, especially with the ballpark and everything.
yes.
I wouldn't.
Yeah.
skating park there and,
Yeah.
I mean, just,
I will say, do we need a motion on that?
Yeah, I think there was never a real clear motion on that, so I don't,
Yeah, and that's why we wanted to have the discussion tonight to just clarify that.
And that's going to be 11-foot drive lane, 10-foot parking lane?
Yes. Can I get a motion on that?
I'll make a motion to go 42 foot.
Doug makes a motion to go at 42 foot,
I'll second that.
and Jamie seconds it. Is there any discussion on it? Otherwise, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carries.
All right, yeah, thank you for helping clarify that. Water treatment, John covered. The wastewater treatment, pre-treatment study, still pulling that together, looking at mid-November, having some results on what the potential pre-treatment at the wastewater plant can be. And River Lakes 4th, still waiting for that to get finished up, it's paid, get it finalized yet, so. Sidewalk, I don't believe, last time I looked, I don't think sidewalk was in, last time I talked to my friend. Otherwise, that's all I have unless there's any other questions for me.
You got anything for Brian? Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 12, Police Department report, Chief Bloom.
Mayor, Council, good evening.
Hey.
So, not a whole lot for me tonight, just kind of a recap of what's been going on lately. 2 weeks ago, we did a mock robbery training with the credit union. It's the second year we've done it. After last year, they now made it mandatory to all their branches to go through with their local law enforcement if they're able. It's a really good training just to kind of show them how we respond. We know their process on what they do on their end, and I think it works out well for both sides. And if there's any other businesses or anything out there that could benefit from that, our investigator does a really good presentation on just different, like we've talked to some of the gas stations about the distraction techniques people are currently using to help out with thefts and that kind of stuff. So just some tips and trends that we're seeing. So if there's any businesses out there that think they could benefit from that, give our office a call. A couple of the other things, we recovered a stolen vehicle in town last week. It was stolen in St. Cloud. It was dropped off here. In St. Cloud, the keys were left in the vehicle. They just grabbed it, and I think it was a convenience thing. There's a lot of them that's going from Wilmer to St. Cloud and back and forth, and they're grabbing available vehicles just to get from point A to point B. So just a reminder to everybody to lock doors, don't keep your keys in your car, that type of thing, so. And then it's getting to the end of the season. We still have the speed truck out. It's on First Street South right now. But if there's anybody out there that has a location that they would want it, give us a call and we'll probably try and keep it out until snow starts to fly, but I don't think that's too far off, so. That's all I have.
Anybody got anything for Jason?
Right.
Thank you very much.
You guys, thank you.
We go on to number 13, City Administrator Report.
Oh, great. The first thing I have is a downtown parking review. I just want to bring some of you up to speed who are not on planning or EDA, I guess. That's just one of you. But both bodies have looked at our ordinance for parking. When businesses are required to have parking on their sites, there's some language in there that says when a building changes hands and it changes uses, the building has to provide parking. Well, our downtown commercial district, our D1, has no setback requirements. So a building could be built on a building, change hands 15 years later, and a new use goes in, and that new use may have to provide parking under the way it's written. And both EDA and planning are concerned that this may be stifling development or vacant building sales and occupancy. And right now, EDA has asked our CEDA consultant, Robert Harris, to conduct a parking study that he'll do in the next 6 to 8 weeks, which I think will help determine if we even have a parking problem in the city of Cold Spring. And then from there, planning and EDA, well, EDA will probably review it because it is CEDA's consultant, and then they'll make a recommendation to planning to review. And from there, I hope to have planning make a recommendation about what to do with the ordinance about C1. Obviously, if you tore down a building and put up a new one, that's different than if you're just changing the use. So those are things that are kind of in the works on that issue. So I'm done with that.
All right.
Next is the only board or commission that has open spots next year is the park board. One is open because of term ends. The other is open because one of the park board members moved out of the district, out of the jurisdiction. And so I'd like to be able to put the advertisements in for those two positions in November and hopefully have some interviews at the December park board with recommendations to the city council for the end of the year.
Okay, recommendation to approve the request to advertise for 2 open positions on the park board. I need a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Doug makes a motion, what a second.
I'll second.
Jamie seconds it. Any discussion on it? Otherwise, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carries. Other?
Yes, I have 2 things. One is there were some questions at the County Road 158, First Street South public hearing. And I have some answers for those that I'm going to put on, well, for at least for one of the questions right now. The others has to do with their assessments, which we don't know yet. But one of them was why we add to the percentage increase on the, or why our interest rate to those who are assessed is 1.5 points ahead of what our bond rate is. And that's due to the fact that it's only the assessed amount, so it's just those assessed. It's not on the full, if it's a $5 million bond, it's not on the $5 million, it's on the amount the city is fronting for those assessed properties to make sure we cover our own risk in case those are never paid. So that's one of the reasons. I'm going to put that on the Facebook page. I'm also going to create a frequently asked questions that will be on our city website, and then I'll update it as questions come in. But I just wanted to get that out. I don't have everyone's email who asked to be notified, so I'm waiting for people to request or get me how they want to be notified about some of the activity on First Street South. So that's that one. And then my second one is there had been some questions, and it's good that the fire department was here tonight. So that $17,900 is the city's contribution to their retirement account. there's two accounts that the fire department has. One is called a special fund and one is called their general fund. The special fund is where all of their benefits, their city, all the public dollars go. So the money that the city spends for the relief, retirement funds and benefits. The general fund is what the Relief Association creates, because they're kind of like a 501c3. It's their contributions from donations. And there's always been questions on, do we know what the general fund balance is and what's been in there? Well, under some case law in the Office of Administration's data practices opinion, that fund is only viewable by members of the fire department. The special fund is public data. The other one is not public data, under those opinions. Our city attorney is not 100% in agreement with those two decisions, but she does believe that if we were to press that request from the relief, they do have a very strong position to say no, and it wouldn't be worth fighting with our own staff to find out about it. But people have asked, and that's why we don't know the results of Firefest, because that's in that special fund. And I just wanted to make sure everyone had a clarity as to what that was for. And with that, I am now done.
All right. Got any questions for Bridget? Otherwise, we will move on to number 14. List of bills and additions. Recommendation to review and accept payment of the accounts payable according to the list and supplemental list presented by city staff. I need a motion on that. Shannon makes a motion. How about a second?
I'll second.
Jamie seconds it. Any discussion on it? Otherwise, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carries. Number 15, general questions and comments from city council. Jamie? Doug? Shannon? Gary? And I have nothing. Then we'll go on to number 16, board and commission updates, planning. We discussed
The brewery.
the brewery a
ones that
lot,
were-
yeah. And then the parking, the downtown parking. That was most of the, that was
That
pretty
was
much all of
it,
it.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah, that was all of it.
I mean, we talked a lot about the brewery
Yeah.
and the exciting things that they have upcoming,
Yeah.
and how that could affect the city and jobs in the
Yeah.
area and stuff, so that was exciting.
Yes. How about EDA?
We have a lot going on. Robert Harris, our new consultant from CETA, has hit the ground running. We had our first meeting with him this month with everybody at the EDA. In addition to the parking study that he's working on, he's also working on a beautification committee and an adopt the block program for the downtown area. Him and Vicky are gonna head that up. And he is now in the process of applying for a what's called an Artists on Main Street grant, which is to support rural community development of art and culture, downtown revitalization, and historic preservation. So he has applied for that grant already. The EDA supported it along with the Chamber of Commerce. And finally, he's working on a new flyer for our revolving loan fund to send out to businesses and stuff. So he's been very busy, very impressed with the work he's done so far. So he certainly has got legs to run with on this one. So he's doing well, we're impressed. So I expect good things from the EDA for the next year.
Good, I hope so. How about Rectory Trail?
Yeah, we did went over some maintenance issues on getting ready for winter, and waiting to hear from the LCCMR. We're on the list, they just have not voted 100% yet for it, so just kind of in a holding pattern, getting ready for winter. That is all there.
We'll go on to number 17. We got scheduled
It's tomorrow, 6.
tomorrow at 6, a special council meeting, and then another council meeting on the 24th at 8. Just so everybody knows. And then our regular city council meeting, the next one is November 12th, 2019. I need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Doug makes a motion, I'll vote a second.
I'll second.
Shannon seconds it. Any discussion on it? Otherwise, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against?